In 2022, I purchased a Ford Etransit electric van. I felt that we were ready for it. I felt that the world was ready for an electric van. But is it ready for this? We're going to take this van and we're going to drive it to Florida. It's converted into a camper, but Florida is 10,000 kilometers for a return trip. I'm a little nervous, but we need to see if the electric van is ready for van life. It has a range of 120 miles, and we need frequent charging. I'm very excited about this trip, but I have to admit, when I think about it, and the number of charges that we have to take, and the distances involved, I'm a little nervous. No time for that though. Let's get ready and hit the road.
Well, good morning, everybody. This morning we're on the road on our way to our first charging station. We're leaving our home in St. John's, Newfoundland, and going all the way to Florida in a van, because we are van lifers. Not full-time, but we do love being in the van. And this time, we're going to do the trip of a lifetime, for us at least. We've done long road trips before, but we've never done one in an electric van. Before I tell you about the purpose of this trip, I'll just go back and revisit where we were about 2 years ago. Like many of you, after the pandemic and during the pandemic, we were watching YouTube videos and wondering about van life. It seemed to be very appealing to get out there away from all the mess that was going on in the world at that time. And we found ourselves really interested in this van life. At the same time, I also had an interest in electric vehicles. So we took the plunge. We bought this electric van. It's a Ford Etransit. It's full electric. It's not a hybrid. And we just wanted to see if we could make this work as a combination work vehicle and a van life camper. So I'll talk more about that later, how we morphed this vehicle into a camper like many people will do. They start off with the basics and then they build it out a bit and build it a bit more, and next thing you know, you've got a full-fledged camper. But the purpose of this trip that we're taking is to see if it's reasonable to take an electric vehicle, in particular an electric van, on a long road trip. This van is quite limited in range. We know that. We expect it. We're not surprised by it. But we're slow travelers. We generally don't have to be there today. So in that regard, is it a good vehicle? What are the pitfalls? What are the pitfalls? What are the positives? And what are some of the challenges that we face? We're going to find out on this trip. So I hope you join us, and we're going to be heading to our first charging station about 1 hour away, and we'll see how it goes. Today we've got a long drive, 900 kilometers. That's going to be several stops for charging, but we have the entire day. This is a road day. First charging.
down to about 33% on my battery. This is kind of typical of the chargers around here. 54 kilowatt hour charging. We just really need enough to get to our next charging stop. But this is all part of it. Now we have to sit and wait a little bit. Well, I'm not just going to sit here and stare at that charger. Nothing seems longer than watching those numbers just tick off, slowly charging. Gets even slower when you watch it. This is a good time to put on a light breakfast, just some toast and jam. Any excuse to have something to eat, I think. Part of the fun of van life, I believe. Besides, who else gets to sit in their van and cook up some food while their vehicle is charging? It really is a unique situation. So many people stop to admire it, and they get a real kick out of the fact that we can be here doing this before we hit the road. So we're held up now at this point down here, which is Goobies. Sorry, this is Whitburn, and our next charging stop will be here in Goobies. The distance is about 75 kilometers away, and all we're really concerned about right now is getting our mileage up enough to make that charging stop, and that's where we're going to be for lunch. So we're already at the point where we can make it, but it's always nice to have a little bit of extra charge in the bank, and so we're going to go maybe another 10 or 15 kilometers, just another 5 or 10 minutes here, and then we'll be back on the road again and going for stop number 2. So this is the thing about going with an electric vehicle. You have to plan these stops. For us, we just stop and have a bite to eat, relax, talk to a few people. There's actually a gentleman parked next door in that vehicle there waiting for his chance to charge up, and have a little conversation with him for a few minutes, and we'll be back on the road again and heading off to Goobies. Okay, we're back up to 70%. Let's go. We're moving again and going across the isthmus which connects the Avalon Peninsula to the rest of the island. It's just one of those days that is making driving an absolute pleasure. I really love going across this province, especially in good weather. We can get awful weather here, that's a fact, particularly in the winter. Spring and fall can also be rough periods sometimes. Summertime is generally nice. I'd encourage anyone to come to the province. If you want to experience it in its best season, summertime is really it. You may get lucky in the fall or spring, but summertime is kind of the best time to really enjoy the province with the best chance of good weather. But do be warned, you can hit bad weather here any time of the year. There's an old saying, if you don't like the weather in Newfoundland, wait 5 minutes. It does feel like that sometimes. It can go from sun to rain to sun to snow in a day. Oh, this moose. It's been here for as long as I can remember. I love seeing this guy. Ever since I was a child, there's been a moose here, I think. Or at least if there was one here before, it's gone and they've rebuilt it. It's larger than the real moose on the island, but not by that much. The real moose are all the way across the province and in Labrador, and you can expect to see one at some point along your journey. They're very commonly noticed. This guy is a little bit worn, but he stands patiently, and all the kids kind of love coming in here and having a look at him and spending a few minutes. It's also a good place to get tourist information and have a little lunch. But for us, it's back on the road. Not a bad time to reflect on what it is we're going to do here. Is this a sensible thing? Are we wasting our time? I don't know. It's a beautiful day. We're on the road. We're hoping to get good weather all the way across the province. We're very excited to see what charging infrastructure is like in other places. We're very familiar with it here in Newfoundland. But in Nova Scotia, they have a somewhat different system. In New Brunswick, they have a different system again. And at that point in New Brunswick, and then starting to go down to the United States, we're expecting to see more fast chargers, superchargers, Tesla chargers, and of course a different environment for EVs because of the vastly larger population. So it's going to be fun. I'm very excited about it. I don't know what really to expect. I do know that we're going to work out any problems that we have. I have no concerns about making it anywhere or getting stuck on the road. I'm sure there will be a few bottlenecks along the way, but that's all part of the adventure, isn't it? As long as we can figure it out and do some good planning, we should be in good shape, no matter where we go. That said, I don't think I'm going to head off into the middle of the desert anywhere. But for now, we're settled in, approaching Clarenville, a town I used to live in many years ago, and we're going to make our way across the province and just enjoy it. This forecast for today is supposed to be clear sky all day and all evening and all the way across the province. That's rare, but I love it. So we're doing a little experiment now. One of the things that we find with the electric vehicle is just how much charge gets used up by having the heating on. This van has resistive heating, very inefficient compared to some of the vehicles that have heat pumps. So in that regard, we're trying to use this little heater here. I'll turn the camera around. This little heater I've got down here, this thing. This is a very basic electric heater picked up from Princess Auto in the United States. In the United States, that would be called probably Harbor Freight. So this thing can go at two rates. It can go at 750 watts or I think a maximum of 1500 watts. So when on that last driving segment, we just had this, I'll turn it back around. We just had this heater on at 750 watts. We've got a separation. It's actually a moving blanket, believe it or not, that we fashioned into some curtains to separate the front from the back. Works pretty well. It's fairly thick and does have some insulation value. So on that segment running for about 30 minutes, that electric heater kept us quite warm, even at a low setting, and it depleted our battery by about 15%. So essentially you would be looking at 30% per hour. So that'll give us 3 hours worth of heat here in the vehicle. And that can make the difference when you're trying to get some range. Now we have a pretty large house battery, 300 amp hours.
Nighttime, we can use that heater in the back, and I'm sure it would be enough to take the chill out on a cold night, at least for a few hours. It's not going to last all night, but it's just one of the things that we do to try to improve this way of camping in a low-range electric van. Cut down on the heat use and maybe get a bit more range out of it. We'll see. I'm not sure what's going to happen when it gets below zero.
I want to talk a bit about charging infrastructure. This is one of the typical chargers here in Newfoundland and Labrador. This one has two chargers, a DC fast charger back here, and over next to it is a regular J1772 slow charger. This is something like you would have at your house. This is the one that you want when you're on the highway. The reason they put these here, the slower ones, is so that if you're out there on the highway and for some reason this one here is out of service, then you can always get yourself home. But heaven forbid if there's a lineup. And here's an example where this can all go astray. We're in this parking lot here, and this parking lot has brand new pavement, and there's a bunch of equipment back there behind me. There's construction ongoing, and one of the things that's been going on out in here in Gander is people have had difficulties getting to the charging station because of the construction that's been ongoing. So this charger that we're plugged into is ran by Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. It's a project here in Newfoundland and Labrador to do charging across the province to make it accessible for EVs. Right now you can go right across the province. These chargers are about every 80 kilometers, 80 to 100 kilometers, something like that. And they are going to have more of them and faster ones. But if you want to do any of the travel around the island to more obscure places, it's going to be a challenge. But this one is working. We've used 4 so far today. Everyone has been perfect, going at maximum power, and we're happy about that, and we're going to get back on the road.
I don't want this to become a tourist video. We're not here to show you all the best camping spots and all the wonderful trees and mountains and tourist traps. That's not really the intention, but boy, I love this part of the province. The birch trees, nice pavement, clear sky. It's just got to be noted how nice it is to be driving across this province. But it's time to charge. Let's get back down to business. It's time to hurry up and wait. And wait. Maybe if I stare at the machine, maybe that'll make it charge faster. Maybe I need to stare a little harder. That's not really working for me. Probably not a good thing to be doing, but it is a beautiful evening. It's almost dark. I know that we're way behind where I thought we would be. But as usual, settle in and wait for the charge. Maybe I'll go out and stare at it a bit more. No, we need to get further. We need to get more charge. Darkness is coming in very quickly. And now it's just a waiting game. How much longer before we can get out of here and get back on the highway? Stare some more? Yeah, I think we're just about there. It's time now to get back on the highway.
So we're on our 5th charge of the day. It's getting a little bit long now today. This is a very, very long run, and we're going to try to finish it tonight. It means we're going to be going till probably 11 o'clock tonight. But that's okay. We knew that going into it. We're going to go across the island in one day, and that's quite a chore in this vehicle. That said, it's comfortable here. The back is very comfortable. The van, we'll do a van tour at some future point. It's mostly done. It's mostly done.
very comfortable. We have all the conveniences that we really need: a comfortable bed, some water, some heat and light, and a few of those conveniences. But the charging, you know, does take time, and we're aware of that. We've got about another 400 kilometers to go this evening, so we'll be driving in the dark from here on out. But we accept that, and of course we'll be having supper in the van now in a little bit. And but for now, it's keep an eye on that charger. Before I get back on the road, we need to get that little heater working. So we've basically been charging this one while we're charging up the van, and so that's going in now at a speed of 625 watts going into that house battery, and we'll keep that going until we get enough charge to run that little heater for the next hour or two, which is no problem. We already have more than enough. We're over 90, and the little heater is, excuse me, the little heater is down here, and I'm just going to pull that out, and that's plugged into our inverter. And I'll put the inverter on now in a couple of minutes when we're about to pull away, and we'll just be drawing off the house battery, which is down here, and that'll give us a bit of extra warmth without taking away from the vehicle battery. It's probably a small amount, especially for this short distance or reasonable distance that we have to drive, but at least it takes a bit of the pressure off the main battery, and it's a good experiment to see how we can maximize the range, how far we can go in cold weather, because cold weather does take its toll. And I'll talk more about that in future videos. I think some of these are a little bit more of a deep dive, how cold weather affects things, how the house battery can help take some of the load off the vehicle, how we can maximize range, how we can accommodate the internal battery requirements with this particular van and making use of that. And there's many other things which are kind of distinct when you're driving an electric van. So we're going to cover many of those. Well, it's certainly been a very long day. We started out this morning at 9 a.m. It's now 3 a.m. We're just reaching our destination on the other side of the island. It's been a good day, but it did take a lot more charging than we were expecting. I think it just took more time to charge because of the rather slow charging infrastructure we have. It's good infrastructure, but it's a bit slow compared to some standards. But I'm exhausted, and it's time for me to go to bed, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. Good night. Well, that's it for this one. Join us next time. Charging is going to get much more difficult.